We are going through a series called Keys to the Kingdom. And it's in Matthew's Gospel. And so we're spending this term careering through Matthew's Gospel, picking up this key theme that runs through it all, which is about the kingdom of heaven, or the kingdom of God, or the kingdom of Jesus. All the same thing. But they are the rule and reign of Jesus coming into this world. And it's not just a thing that's happening distantly, but a thing that you and I are invited into and to play a part in, and actually influences everything that we do in 2026 and beyond. And so because of its importance, I thought let's have a little bit of time just working through what is the kingdom of heaven and how are we part of it. So here we are, Keys to the Kingdom. We are in Matthew 11, verses 11 to 19 this morning. And these are the words of Jesus. Truly I tell you, he says, among those born of women, there has not risen anyone greater than John the Baptist. Yet whoever is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. From the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has been subjected to violence, and violent people have been raiding it. For all the law and the prophets prophesied until John. And if you are willing to accept it, he is the Elijah who was to come. Whoever has ears, let them hear. To what can I compare this generation? They are like children sitting in the marketplaces and calling out to others. We played the pipe for you and you did not dance. We sang a dirge and you did not mourn. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say he is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is proved right by her deeds. I want to talk to you this morning about our expectations. I want to talk to you about our expectations. If this is your first time in church, I wonder what you expected when you came. I loved a couple of weeks ago as we heard some testimonies from people who found faith in Jesus over this last year. Shannon's story. If anybody heard Shannon's story, part of her story was that she just had this growing sense that maybe, just maybe, she should go to church. She didn't really know anything about church. She'd never really been to church, and church was not really on her radar until she started thinking, I might go to church. And so she thought, well, I don't really know what to expect. And the biggest thing that was running through her mind was, what should I wear? So Shannon put a dress on. Now, Shannon, in her video, said, I never wear dresses. I've never worn a dress in my life. I'm surprised I even had one to wear, but I put a dress on to come to church because my expectation is that this is a place of perfect people gathered together looking amazing. That this is a place of people who've got it all together and they put their Sunday best on to prove that they've got life sorted. Is that what this is? Some of you. Her expectation was this place where people lived by a rule that they did all the right things in the right way. That you've come into a place where actually if you weren't dressed right, you didn't fit in and you couldn't even come. And then Shannon turned up here and discovered that that was not true. And what happened in that place was that she encountered Jesus. She came looking for a place where you had to be a certain type of person and behave and act in a certain type of way. She came dressed and ready to get her life perfect, and instead ended up a crying mess on the floor as God met with her and somebody prayed with her. She came to get her life sorted, and instead Jesus said, don't worry that it's not. Her expectations were that church and faith and Jesus really was for other people. Her expectations were that church and faith and life to the full was only found in dressing and acting and behaving in a certain way. But yet she discovered that that was not true, but in fact that she was welcome as herself, in all her ordinariness and messiness. And the tears flowed as she met with Jesus. What are your expectations of Jesus? What is your expectation of being a Christian? What is your expectation of coming to church? If I went round, I would find there's probably 300 different answers to that question. But whatever your answer is, I want to just encourage you this morning to let Jesus give you a different answer. To let Jesus surprise you with what he's really got for you this morning. All the prophets and the law had prophesied until John. Throughout the whole of the story of the people of God in the Old Testament and into the New Testament is the story of what they should expect as the Messiah turns up. When the Messiah turns up, all of the people in charge of the country will be defeated, and this rule will come in that means everything will be done the way that you expect it to be done. You know how you want to live life? Well, it'll be like you want life when the Messiah comes. And John the Baptist, who was prophesied about, turned up. Jesus says, among those born of women, there has not risen anyone greater than John the Baptist. He was the one that had been prophesied about. He was the one that, in many ways, everybody was expecting. And John the Baptist turned up. I'm here. I am the voice crying in the wilderness that we're told about in Isaiah. This is me. Let's go. Here's how I want you to do things. Here's how I want you to live. Here's the things that are not going particularly well. And what happened to John the Baptist? As soon as he started saying this is not the right way to live, as soon as he started telling the ruling authorities you shouldn't be behaving like this, they threw him in prison. As soon as he went around living a life that was counter-cultural in the way that John the Baptist lived, he was rejected by everybody in power. All of those who'd set up the expectations didn't want anything to do with him. And then Jesus turned up and lived a completely different way. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he has a demon. The Son of Man, Jesus, came eating and drinking. So let's try something else here. Came eating and drinking, full of life and joy and energy, and they say he's a glutton and a drunkard and a friend of tax collectors and of sinners. To what can I compare this generation, says Jesus? They're like children sitting in marketplaces and calling out to others. We played a pipe for you and you did not dance. We sang a dirge and you did not mourn. Their expectations of what Jesus, what the kingdom, what the Messiah should look like, every time it actually turned up, they went, well, no, that's not right. Oh, no, that's not what I was expecting. Oh, no, I don't want to live like that. So should we have a drink then? No, I don't want to live like that either. No, none of this is right. And in doing that, they missed the power of the kingdom. Because the proof of the pudding, as Jesus says at the end of this passage, is in the eating. Wisdom is proven right by its deeds. The kingdom is not about drinking and dancing, nor is it about sackcloth and ashes. It's not about beating ourselves up or saying that we're brilliant. The kingdom is when we let Jesus have the power and authority over every part of life. And he says, I've got you. It's when we let Jesus have the power and authority and the rule and the reign in all the areas of our life that we have been trying to sort out for ourselves. And he says, don't worry, I've got this. All of the law and the prophets and even John the Baptist himself were trying to bring about the kingdom through their own activity and actions. They had a plan as to how to make this world new. They had a plan as to how to stop all the problems that were going on happening. They had a plan as to how to get rid of all the evil and the bad in the world. They had a plan, and it was to live in this particular way. Yet Jesus turns up and he says, yes, all the law and the prophets have said this. And John the Baptist, well, nobody's greater than John the Baptist. He is the culmination of trying to do it that way. Yet, Jesus says, whoever is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. He's not saying that John the Baptist is a problem. I mean, John the Baptist, as Jesus said, is great. What he's saying is, everybody who lives in the kingdom of heaven, under the rule and reign of God, is living in a much greater, more blessed way than all of those trying to do it in their own strength. Jesus is saying there is a new and greater way of doing this life. And it's not to try and sort it all out yourself. It's not to try and learn all the things. It's not to try and work everything out. It's not to get the right dress so that you can come to church. It's to turn up and let God do his thing. We had, it was 3 years ago, I did an Alpha course here, and a guy came on it, really interested in exploring faith. And after he'd come to us, he'd lived over Guildford way, but he'd come over here to try Alpha. And we kept in touch a bit afterwards, emailing, oh, how are you getting on? And he was like really just walking this journey of faith and trying to puzzle it out. And then one day he emailed me to say, I think I've got it. And I said, how do you mean? And he'd bumped into, randomly, somebody from JLS, that's a band. And the guy in JLS is a Christian. And he said to him, do you know what the thing is? Let go and let God. And he was like, at that moment, it had just twigged in his brain. He'd been trying to desperately build and work it out for himself. And actually, God was saying, you do not need to worry. I've got you. Let go and let God. I was looking through the Bible to see if it's in there somewhere. It's not. So I don't go off quoting me on it. But it's a bloke from JLS came up with it. But the point is, let go and let God. If you want to sum up what's happening in Matthew 11, is this. Jesus turned up and went, well done. Well done. Like genuinely well done. But let me take it from here. And I just wonder if for you today, Jesus is saying, well done. Well done. Well done. Like you have done so well to get to here. I see what you've done, all that's happened, all that's walked to this point, well done. Now let me take it from here. Let me take it from here. Because you see the keys to the kingdom, the keys to life and life to the full, the keys to all the blessing that God has for you, for your family, for your friends, for this town, comes as we let go and let God. Well done. Like genuinely well done. This is not, Jesus doesn't turn up and criticize John. He says, John is great. He says, you're great. He's like, I can see what you've done. I see how much you've put in. I see how much effort you've put in. Let me take it from here. Let me take you from here. I've got you. Are you ready?